Hello, welcome to the Manic Pixie Dream Vlog. I'm your host, Caroline Georges, and welcome. So today I wanted to talk about older men and just what my experiences have been dating older men when I was younger, just being sexualized by older men, and just kind of talk about that. And I so I guess the first memory that comes to mind is that I was 15, and I went to go visit my mother at her office, at the office that she worked at. My mom used to temp and stuff, and so she would work at these different offices. And so I went to go visit her at this office that she was working at that was close to where I went to school. And I went and said hi, and then her coworker came in, and he was this man, and he was, I think, like in his 30s, maybe, and he was really friendly and really nice and stuff, I guess I come from a small town, so I guess apparently he had met me before or something, or he had, I don't know, maybe something like that, because he said, Caroline's growing up nicely. But he said it in a way that was suggestive. And I was wearing a skirt. And I remember, like, just looking at my legs and just feeling really naked. And I just really sensed that this man... Freud is interesting. I don't agree with Freud on a lot of things, for sure, because, he thought his kids wanted to fuck him. You know what I mean? He had like 4 daughters, and he thought each and every one of them wanted to fuck him, just because it's creepy. Like, I can only take what this man says seriously to a certain level before it putters out to this guy literally was just, addicted to the fact that, to the notion that his daughters were attracted to him. And I just, anyway, so Freud I take with a grain of salt, which we all should, but Freud believed in, like, I forget what, there's a term for it, but it's like in psychology, but like basically what it is chemistry, is that our bodies release chemistry, that, and it's, not just pheromones, but it's like Freud actually believed that, like attraction was a psychic thing. And, it was like something you could, sense with your brain and communicate with your brain to someone. Freud really believed that. And so I that was what I felt with this man, is that I felt that chemistry, that he was attracted to me, and I felt it, and it was very strong, and I felt really, I felt sexualized. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong, per se. He didn't say anything wrong, per se, but I felt it, I felt that, and it was kind of, I don't know, maybe disturbing is a strong word, but it made me feel weird. I think one of my most wild years, as far as, one of the wildest years of my life was when I was 17. And I had just gotten out of, like, this all-girls boarding school that I was in for 2 years. I immediately lost my virginity. Like, I waited maybe like a couple of months before losing my virginity. And and so I was pretty wild. And so me and my friend, who, she and I had a really long history together, and she and I were pretty wild together. She and I just decided to go out walking at night, and so we snuck out. It was about midnight, and there was this music festival happening in my hometown. It's called, like, the Folk Festival, and it happens every year, so, like, a bunch of folk groups will come and play, and over a few days and stuff, and it's, anyway, so that's, like, a thing in my town. And so that was going on, and so we walked past this hotel, and And there was this group of men and women sitting in a circle playing instruments and singing. And so they were folk acts from out of town, just kind of having fun, playing music together. And so my friend and I were like, let's go in there, let's say hi. And so we did, and we went in, and then we talked to this guy who had like this most douchey name ever. Just like, I don't remember, I mean, I remember what it was, but I'm not going to say it here. His name was like, think of something like Jimmy Vegas or something like that. It was ridiculous. He had like one of those kinds of names, a very like 1980s rock star name. So we went and sat by him and started talking with him. And by the way, he was very good looking, and he kind of had this Elvis vibe about him. And so my friend and I we were flirting with him, we were talking to him, and I just thought we were having fun, like I didn't think this was going to lead to anything. So they gave us alcohol. I don't know if maybe they just assumed we were 21. We were 17 and 18 at the time. So, but they gave us alcohol, and they gave us weed, and we just partied with them until like, and then at the end of the night, we were the last ones down in the lobby, and so he asked us back up to his room, and we went, and this man was probably at least 30, give or take a few years, and I was, my friend was 18, but I was still underage, and this man, to be fair, he didn't know, we never said how old we were. And I never told him how old I was, So if I had disclosed that, maybe he would have made different choices. But his situation was he had been drinking. He, had been smoking weed. He's here for a folk festival he's visiting. He's, what I mean? He might as well have a threesome with these two girls, So I can't say whether or not this man did anything wrong. Ethically, as far as he could know, the information he had, I don't know if he did anything wrong or not. But we didn't have sex with him, but we took turns making out with him and stuff, and we fooled around. And that was as far as it went. But, there was something, why I went along with it, it was really exciting. It was really dangerous. It was something I knew I could get in a lot of trouble for if my family found out. And I've always chased that feeling in different ways, and that was just one way that I chased it. And, yeah. And so, but, I can't speak on the moral compass of that man, or whether or not he did anything wrong. But, I have a staged name. George's isn't my real last name, and I'm not going to say what my real last name is. It's terrible. But, I chose it. In my hometown, I didn't see a therapist in my hometown. I saw a priest. And, because that was just sort of that was my advantage in my hometown. They didn't really have therapists there. And, so I saw a priest, and, I would go and see him maybe once or twice a month, and just tell him my sins, and that was therapy for me. And so so what happened is that I was working at a daycare at the time, and I was dating one of the dads, at this daycare. And, and so I saved money, and I was saving money to move to Los Angeles, and how I did that was by working at a daycare. And so I so I wasn't interested in the dad. You know what I mean? I was just kind of dating him because I was bored. He was cute. I liked his daughter, you know? And, you know, and he was a teacher and he was nice and stuff. And, but I was bored with him and I didn't want to date him. I wasn't really that interested in him. And I wouldn't sleep with him. That was an issue, is that I didn't want to sleep with him. Anyway, eventually, because I didn't sleep with him, he just, you know, said he didn't want to see me anymore, which was fair, you know what I mean? And made total sense and was fine. But I was just pissed. I was outraged. I don't know how to, I didn't appreciate it, you know? And it was just like, cause it's like, I should have broken up with him. You know what I mean? Like maybe that was what it was. Just my pride was really hurt or something like that. Or just maybe I was, at the time, maybe I was just really sensitive to being rejected. And then he rejected me for, you know, fair reasons, I guess. And then I just reacted to it that way. And, so I went to confession and I told Father Georges, who was the priest that I went to confession to, that was his name. I confessed that I hated him. I said I hated this man who broke up with me, and I said that I felt hatred towards him. And then Father Georges said this to me that always really stuck with me. He says, "Oh, well, that's because love and hate is like this. And go in peace and serve the Lord," or whatever. And that always stuck with me. That was so true. That was so incredibly true. Just that the fact of that, you know, humanity is duality, you know, good and evil, right and wrong, love and hate. It's like this. And that always just really, that just was so moving to me. And that's why I named myself after Father Georges. And anyways, I digress, I guess. But, so when I was younger, when I was 15, I had a friend from cheerleading who, her family would go on vacation to Las Vegas. And they would bring their daughter, and who was my friend, and she could bring a friend, and they would pay the expenses for the friend. So she asked me to go with her that year, and so I went with her for Christmas to this trip to Las Vegas in like the beginning of December or whatever. And so my friend met a guy on MySpace, and that was something that she and I liked to do together. We used to like to chat with guys on MySpace and stuff, and that was like, we would go into chat rooms and we would just, you know, do that sometimes. But this time she met somebody who lived in Las Vegas. He was an actor. He had like one line in a Ben Stiller movie, so he was like legitimately an actor. He lived in Las Vegas, and the movie that he was in was filmed in Las Vegas, and you know, and so yeah, like, so we were really impressed, and I was really impressed, and so he was gonna come and meet us at the hotel to meet us and just talk with us. And that was what I knew, and that was what I understood the situation was. Honest. And but then my friend was like, well, actually he wants us to go with him to eat someplace. And so but then once we were in the car with him, he said that it turned out we were going back to his apartment. And it was, so we went back to his apartment, and it was covered floor to ceiling in pornography DVDs. And it was floor to ceiling, everywhere. And, yeah, so, I was kind of scared, and the guy reassured us that the porn DVDs belonged to his ex-girlfriend, that she had left there, and that they did not belong to him. And get this, I believed him. I was just like, I don't know what that was. Like, that was just such a bullshit thing to say, and I believed that bullshit. I believed it. And I was like, oh, thank God, it's not his. It says girlfriends. Thank goodness. I don't even think it was until like years later I was just like, oh, hold on a second. I think that was his porn. I think it was years later. Literally, I think it was years later. And so, my friend and him we all went back to his bedroom, and then they started kissing, and I left, and she was wearing a skirt that belonged to me, and the skirt had beads on it. And when I got the skirt back, some of the beads had ripped, and it was I know what happened. I know what happened. And she was 15 and he was 26. And for all I know, from my memory, he seemed like he was 26, but I don't know, maybe he was older, who knows. But I just, he came out, and he sat down next to me, and he put his arm around me, and he started moving his face towards me, and then I just blurted out, I've never been kissed before, and he left me alone. That was what, and I just instinctively knew to say that, that was just, going back to like Freud and stuff and chemistry, I mean, I just, like, I think with just phones and cell phones and all this technology and all these things that are distracting us, I wonder if that's weakening our chemistry, and I wonder if that's contributing to sexual assault or miscommunications that lead to experiences that are like sexual assault to women, and I wonder if like people lacking being able to sense chemistry is a part of that, but I don't know. Anyways, but okay, so let me get to my professor. I know, I was that girl. I know, like, you don't even have to tell me. I know, I was that girl. Okay, so because I was that girl, I dated my professor for a minute. He was my producing instructor where I went to school, and so this is how we this is what happened. He was in a little bit of a scandal in Hollywood. Like, it was a pretty big deal, and it was in like the news. There was an article about it in LA Weekly and stuff. And so this movie, I won't get into specifics or details or what studio it was, but this big fucking studio with this big fucking production. The original screenwriter was fired from writing the script, but it was his story. The story of the movie belonged to him. And it was never credited to him, and he was never paid for it. And so he sued the studio and won by a landslide because that was really fucking wrong. And guess who was the person who screwed him over? My professor. And so I heard the rumors about him and stuff, and I read the article about him and stuff where his name is mentioned, you know what I mean? You can look him up, look up his name and find this about him, this dirt on him, you know what I mean? And so I wanted to talk to him about it. Like, I was just like, I need to talk to this guy about it. And I need to hear about this from him. And so I walked up to him on the first day of class, and I was just like, hi, Professor Smith. We'll just call him Professor Smith. And I said, and I asked him if I could go get him a cup of coffee. And he looked at me and he just smiled, and he was just like, yeah, thank you. I'd really appreciate that. And I went and I got him a cup of coffee. And then after class, we chatted for a little while, and he invited me to go to the Kubrick exhibit at the LACMA. And so we went that weekend, and yeah, that was, nothing ever happened, but we did go on dates. So, but I've been known to be a little bit exploitative that way. So, you know what I mean. Anyways, but he fell in love with me. He fell head over heels in love with me. He was an alcoholic. He had a lot of issues. He, was in his 40s, never been married and stuff. And he, his career, he was on the top of the world, being at the head of the studio, one of the heads of the studio, for a long time. And then now he's teaching, think about it. He's very unhappy. And I tend to attract men that are unhappy. And so I was living in this hostel at the time, and I got a voicemail from him. I might have gotten several voicemails from him throughout that week. I was avoiding him at this time. I didn't want to see him anymore at this time, because I asked him about the lawsuit, and while he was drunk, and I wasn't being smart, and I just, I was really anxious. I just really wanted to know, you know what I mean? I just wanted to know about it. And so I kind of asked him at the wrong time, or I probably shouldn't have asked ever. Anyways, so I didn't want to see him anymore. And so all throughout that week, he was just calling me. And so he had called me that night, left a voicemail, asking me why I and just, so I hear music. And by the way, this hostel is it's hostile. You know what I mean? It's a hostel. It's not the kind of place where you want to piss anybody off or be a problem, And I once, this guy walked in while I was showering to smoke meth in the bathroom. You know what I mean? It was that kind of living situation. And the women's bedroom had a deadlock on the door, And so I hear music, and it's this really cheesy 90s R&B song, in the vein of Boyz II Men. It was this really sappy love song. And I look out the window, and it was him. He was fucking outside in the driveway with the lights, all of his lights on, and the big bright beaming lights, those were on. He was just standing outside, smoking a cigarette, and playing this song and pacing. So when I later saw him in class, I ignored him. I tried talking to him after class, and he seemed really hurt, and I just said I didn't want to see him anymore, and I'm sorry if I hurt him, and that was that, and that handled the situation. But, yeah, older men. That's my vlog for today. Thank you for listening and watching, and I hope you have an awesome week. Like and subscribe, or, or leave a comment. It always helps. Thanks. Bye.